Sometimes you just have a really big hand, and so does the other guy. And that is the case that Ola Shemian and someone, Yazonis?
Yeah, someone.
We're not sure. We don't remember.
I forgot.
Tomas Yazonis find themselves in at the final table of the 2018 EPT Monte Carlo main event, where all the money is up top. They've sort of locked about 60K so far, but there's 700,000 euros still to be won up there for first place. This is a cool hand.
This is a really cool hand, and Jonathan might have made that sound a bit like a cooler, and like, why would you break down a cooler? Trust me, there's reasons to break down a cooler. This gets really weird, really interesting by the river.
Yeah, and it's not a cooler right away anyway. By the way, this is probably, and I'm just guessing, this is probably why Ryan Andrews suggested this on Twitter. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, you got to tweet it at us, include a YouTube link and a timestamp so we know where it is on the YouTube link. And then, we just might break it down like this one.
We just might break it down, and we just might get really mad at you if you don't sign up for Nitrogen Sports Poker Room.
Because we are very emotional beings.
We are quite emotional. Now, when you sign up, we'll get extra mad if you don't use the link in the description of this video, because it's dumb. You're just dumb if you don't do it.
Wow, there it is. That's just defensiveness coming out.
I'm sorry, it's just true. You get access to exclusive Poker Guys events. Right now, we run a monthly tournament where we guarantee 1,000 buy-ins. We've only ever gotten around 80 players at most. That means there's free money, but you have to use the link in order to play the tournament.
Yeah, so definitely do that. They have other cool stuff too, sports betting, casino betting, all the good stuff. Get in there, get you some poker. Use the link in the description. Let's get to the hand. All right. That was fun.
Okay.
Ola Shemian, second in chips, 94 big blind stack. Opens with Queen Jack from under the gun +3. Makes it 90K. Pocket fives for Sadri Saleh. That's a call. The crinkling is getting really tilting.
Oh, my bad.
I was going to say, did you pass your bag of potato chips along to somebody at the feature?
I gave one to everyone.
Yazonis has Jack-8 in the big blind.
It's a combination of the crinkling and the shuffling, actually, that bothers me. It's approaching nails on a chalkboard status.
Yazonis calls as well, three-way to the flop. And that flop is 10-9-7. Yazonis flops it. And Shemian has a gut shot to a better straight. What do you do here, Maria? Play and flow?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why it looks like Yazonis is going to lead into the pre-flop raiser is because he feels like this is the kind of board that's going to get checked around a lot, and leading can actually look a little bit weaker than obviously what he has. It looks more like, protecting top pairs or a pair and a straight draw. Doesn't really look like you flopped a joint.
150K from Yazonis, called by Shemian. Salah gets out of the way, and it's heads up to the turn.
Let's see how good Shemian is running today.
He's got the swag factor. It brings a 5 on the turn, which would have been a set for Salah. He saved himself by not getting involved post flop.
Unfortunately, he doesn't know that just yet. He's probably a little tilted at the moment. I was actually a little disappointed that Honglin folded 8-6, which would be in really big trouble right now, too. Although he would have a straight flush draw.
Yazonis Fires again, 375,000 into 630,000.
And this is the part where, you know, Shemyon's also thinking maybe my overcards could be good based on the way the hand was played. I don't think he would often call with just a straight draw if that's all he thought his outs were.
But it's the 8 that comes on the river.
There's our answer to how good Shemyon's running today.
Shemyon swag factor, 8 out of 10.
What in the world?
Well, this is going to result in a change at the top of the leaderboard.
This is just so unlucky.
Twitch chat's kicking off. As Yazonis bets 725,000. And Shemyon's sitting there with the nuts, right?
Yes, and he has, you know, 3.18 million in chips total, and he's just thinking about a sizing that is going to get paid off. I don't think all in is that sizing, and Yazonis' hand looks pretty strong here. To think that Yazonis is betting 3 streets after this kind of run out, Shemyon has to believe he has a straight.
So why is all in not the
Because
move?
he blocks the nut straight is the problem. I mean, yes, Yazonis could have the same hand in this spot, but a lot of times he could have a hand like Jack 10.
Well, how much is that?
2 million?
2.5 million.
If you threw up earlier, Joe, I don't know why you're not throwing up now.
I got nothing left in my guts, that's why.
And of course, every decision has that 30-second timer running.
Having been what it was, but
I mean, can Shemyon do this with just a jack?
Just to be clear, he doesn't have to play those time bank cards. They will be deducted from him at the end of the hand. Every 30 seconds that passes, the dealer resets the clock and starts it again. He will be warned when he's on his last time bank card, though, because if the clock hits 0, his hand will be dead.
whew, looked like he was gonna. Oh.
This is a super big time fold in a super big time spot by Yazonis. How about them apples, Ola Shemyon?
Yeah, are you saying Yazonis looks like Matt Damon or something? He doesn't really.
Not really saying that, but I'm sure he's a big fan of Good Will Hunting, because who isn't?
Is that line ever going to get old, by the way? It's been around forever. How about that?
I mean, it was around before Good Will Hunting also.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Sure it wasn't. Of course it wasn't.
It's illegal to say that even.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about how we get here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about if either player should feel good about the river. I know Ola Shemyon should feel good about the river, but as far as actually being able to get value, it
Yeah.
seems like a really hard thing to do for both players in this spot. Let's go back a little bit in time and talk briefly about the flop and turn, though.
Okay.
So Yazonis flops the nuts.
That's good.
That's really good. And he leads, which is an interesting decision. What do you think, Jonathan?
I like it a lot on this kind of a board where it's 10 high in 3 ways. Ola's often going to check here rather than bet because he's not going to be able to often call check raises with his range. It's also better clearly for the caller's ranges than his range. He's almost always going to check this. So not allowing a free card I think is great because there are cards that are going to kill Yazonis' action for sure. At least he doesn't know this, of course. An 8 would in theory kill his action, but would really just hurt him,
Yeah.
as we saw later. But a jack kills his action. Things that sort of make him a straight that he already has, though. A 6, you know, so that way his opponents are afraid that he's got a straight when in fact he already has one anyway. I think we really want to bet here. Also, we don't block any of the 2-pair combos or top pair combos or anything like that. If Ola has anything reasonable at all, he's calling once too. I really like a bet.
I do too. And if you want to hear a long, protracted discussion about what range we should choose to bet if we're Yuzonis here to balance out this range, then check out our podcast because we went in depth on that.
Yeah.
Now, Shemian could raise the flop. We feel like that might be a bit much at this point because Yuzonis' range, as we discussed in the podcast, is not a range that's going to fold too frequently against a raise.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to call. We get to the turn, and oh, poor Salah would have flopped a set.
Little does he
turn to
know.
set. Yeah.
Third place by the end of the hand, my friend.
Yeah, he really is. So the interesting decision on the turn is should Shemian fold, call, or raise, because all of those are legitimate decisions.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? So, like, we'd be worried that an 8, although it makes us a straight, often isn't going to get us paid anyway. A king might even scare off our opponent some of the time.
Depending on which part of his range he has.
Of course.
Yeah.
Our implied odds are questionable at best here, but we are in position, so that's kind of nice. It gives us the opportunity also to bluff sometimes. If a card comes and Yuzonis checks, we're almost certainly going to bet if we don't improve as Shemian. I gotta believe,
Yeah.
right? So there's that. I don't know. I think I like a call, but I could justify a raise here for sure. I think it's fine. I think I like a fold the least of the 3. What do you think?
I think I agree. I think raising is a little bit too much Ola Shemian for Ola Shemian at this point. His reputation is kind of that of a madman, and it might not work that often against like bottom 2 pair, whereas if he wasn't Ola Shemian, that might work in a huge spot like this.
Yeah.
But as Ola Shemian, maybe he thinks he doesn't have enough fold equity for that type of play.
And again, he can always pull out the old full equity play on the river if Yuzonis doesn't bet a 3rd time. If Yuzonis bets a 3rd time, I think Shemian's almost always folding, rather than making a bluff raise on the river or something like that, because it's just so scary.
Unless the river's what the river is.
Well, then we're raising for value.
So let's talk about this river here.
Okay.
As Yuzonis, it really sucks, obviously. Like, that's one of the cards we really didn't want to see. We didn't want to see the board pair, we didn't want to see an 8, we didn't want to see a jack. Those are the 3 major things we didn't want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think that's right.
And Yuzonis decides to bet. The question is this the best way to get value? Because obviously we're trying to get value. We're not trying to bluff out the nuts.
I mean, this is a serious conundrum, I think, right now for Yuzonis, and it may seem very obvious. Like, you have the second nuts. Of course you should bet. You know, you could, and we talked about this on the podcast. We really got into this, sort of discussing what's the best play here. Check to call, probably, depending on sizing, but most likely check to call. Bet like this sizing that Yuzonis does, or like which is more normal sizing, or bet a different sizing, and what makes sense and why. And we really batted it around quite a bit before Grant finally said what I thought was clearly the best answer, which is
Bet
ding.
really small.
Yes.
Yeah, we think maybe Yuzonis can get kind of just a shrugger call from some of Shemian's hands that are definitely going to fold to the size that he chose.
Did you say shrugger call?
Yeah, like while he's calling, he's like, I got kings, whatever.
Is Shrugger the rat that taught the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles how to fight? Because I'm pretty sure he is.
No,
They love pizza.
that was Splinter.
Yes.
They do love pizza, though. I love pizza. Pizza's good.
Michelangelo, let's go.
All right, back to the hand.
Sorry.
All right, so I think something like 250K, although we're not getting a ton of value, maybe even smaller.
Yeah.
We sometimes get called by hands like kings. Maybe we even induce a bluff raise some of the time. We absolutely cannot fold to a raise if we bet smaller.
If we bet tiny like this, too, like Grant's saying, 200K, 175K, whatever, 225K, anything in there, it's going to make a Shemian think like, okay, if I have kings, I can call, but I'm often losing to 2 pair now when I call. Like 9-8 makes a lot of sense. 7-8 makes a lot of sense.
7-9 even.
Yeah, things like this, it's just like, bleh, but I can raise, and what can he even do? And it looks
Right.
like a blocking bet. So a lot of players like Shemian almost like have a default click war mechanism, which is like, you make a blocking bet, buddy, I raise you.
Yeah.
And so this is a great spot to make this kind of a blocking bet with this kind of a hand. I love it.
And we could never fold to a raise in that case.
Of course not.
However, we did not make that bet. So
Right.
can we fold to this raise? We know Yuzonis did, but was it a mistake?
Oh man, this is such a tough spot for Yuzonis. Okay, let's say one thing first of all. I don't believe Shemian is raising a jack here. Ever.
No, just a singular jack.
Ever.
Yes, I agree. And he's not raising anything for value here.
Ever.
So basically what you're saying is,
Yeah.
Shemian is not raising anything for value here that is not the nuts.
I know that sounds crazy, but because, what's the other guy's name?
Yuzonis.
Yuzonis absolutely can have Queen Jack himself.
Yeah.
There's just no way Shemian, if he makes a jack, if he makes the straight on the river and has a jack, he's going to raise, because he's not going to think he can get value out of worse, and he's going to be very where he could be raising into the nuts himself, which is just a disaster.
Right, that's a key point. Yuzonis is entirely uncapped. He has the nuts in his range squarely, all 16 combos.
No question.
Right, so that means that Shemian, when he raises, he's either bluffing because of some physical read or something, or he has the nuts, and that is our opinion on this hand. Now, what hands could Shemian be bluffing with? Is there a bluff to find here?
I mean, maybe something like ace-8 suited, something like that. One pair of hands.
That's a terrible hand to bluff with. That is maybe the worst hand to bluff with.
Because?
Because we block an 8 and we don't have any blockers to the nuts. We want Uzonis to have an 8, right? If we're going to be raising as a bluff here.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
But it's hard to think of other hands we can get here with.
King, queen of spades.
Yeah, king, queen of spades, queen, queen, of course. Things that block the nuts themselves, which is super sweet. So I agree. The best hands to do this with are hands that have queens in them, at least.
It kind of has to be like queen, 9 of spades, queen, 10 of spades, queen, queen, and king, queen of spades.
I mean, queen, queen is the super sweetest bluff spot of all, right? That hand makes the most sense where we're absolutely calling the turn, I think. And on the river, now we feel like we can't just call, but it's really hard for Uzonis to have queen jack himself now. We can much more comfortably raise.
I don't know if
two queen blockers.
I don't know if I agree with that entirely. I think king, queen of spades might be the best one, even though we only have the one queen blocker.
How come?
Because we never win with king, queen of spades. We can decide to just call with 2 queens.
How in the world do we win with queen,
if Uzonis himself has 8x of anything and he decides he has to bluff the river?
So he's got to have the ace, king 8, ace 8, something like that.
Or any 8 suited because he was in the big blind?
Like the bad 8s, because there's very few other ones that don't beat us this point.
Yeah.
But there's a few, right? There's a few. I guess there's like 8-5 suited.
Yeah, I think Shemian could talk himself into a call with 2 queens, which makes it harder for Uzonis to call here. Also, by the way, all this stuff we're saying is like if Shemian really, really wanted to go for it, because usually he's not going to do that. Usually when this guy, who has been proven to be tight, by the way, in previous hands in this very tournament, takes this line, Shemian is really just not going to bluff that frequently.
It's really important to know this. Earlier on, Uzonis got bluffed off of ace-king suited when he was 3-bet, it didn't 4-bet an amateur, and then flopped a royal flush draw, just called on the flop, and then folded the turn. By the way, the amateur had 7-deuce off. It's a hand we've already broken down. We'll talk about that later. But and they all know about this because the amateur showed, and it's being streamed, so it means they all found out what Uzonis had a half hour later or something like that. They're all very aware. Uzonis is super careful with his chips. So when he goes bet, 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 I don't think you should be assuming or believing he has very many bluffs at all. Like, he's got at least a jack almost always.
Almost always. By the way, he's entirely uncapped. By the way, Ola Shemian's aware of his own reputation. I don't think this is really ever a bluff. I think this is a good fold by Uzonis.
I agree. That said, I don't think someone like Ola Shemian should be ever targeting a jack if he's bluffing, because even though this is a good fold by Uzonis, I don't think that many players are always going to make it.
Right, I agree.
I agree. They're going to say distribution, I call. Right?
Yeah, no, I think if Shemian were bluffing, he would have a no pair hand and be targeting an 8 most of the time.
Yeah, it's really hard for him to have a no pair hand.
Yeah. You might be sitting there thinking, they said you should fold a jack. Those guys are idiots. Hey, tell us in the comments. But, you know, be nice about it because we're fragile beings.
We are so fragile.
But actually tell us about a lot of your thoughts. We'd like to know what you think about Uzonis leading, what you think about Shemian's turn play. Should he raise? Should he fold the turn? Those are 2 options there. Is Shemian sizing incorrectly on the river? Could he have gotten called if he min-raised? Do you think that's a good idea? Is there any way Shemian's getting paid? Is there any way Uzonis played it wrong throughout the hand? Mostly just the river. Do you think he should have bet small? Do you think he should have checked? Do you think he should have bet bigger? We'd like to know. Let us know in the comments.
Do you think he should have called, even though this time he would have been wrong?
Yeah.
Let us know. We want to know because we like you guys. We want to hear what you have
some
to
of
say.
you.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's so brutal, man.
It's so true.
Hey, we referred to a different hand that Uzonis played at the same final table where he played up against a qualifier where he had ace-king suited. The qualifier had 7-deuce off. It's a wacky hand. We talked about it, and we want you to watch it. It's right up here. Click right there to check it out.
We talked about it in the video. We also talked about it in a former podcast. We also talked about this hand in a podcast. And guess what? We do twice as many podcasts as breakdown videos. True. So if you're dying for more content, that's where you should go. Also, if you want to know more in-depth thoughts about the hands, if you want to hear us talk about, like I said, Uzonis' range on the flop that he should choose to lead with, if he's going to lead the nuts, he's got to have some other stuff in there to balance. We don't talk about that in the video, but in the podcast, maybe 10 minutes is based on that. So if that's for you, check out the podcast. It's The Breakdown presented by the Poker Guys.
Definitely do check it out. It comes out every, Tuesday and Thursday?
Nope, that's totally wrong.
Monday and Thursday. Close enough.
How long have we been doing this?
No one cares. All right. If you like this video, give us a like and a subscribe.